Okay, so today we're going to take a look at the buoyancy and flow system in Cultist Astronaut. It turns out Unity has a really nice buoyancy effector system that we're taking advantage of. And what you can do is you can create a prefab called, I call this a floater object, and the floater is the dead fish. We give it the layer buoyant. We give it a rigid body. This is dynamic, so it will fall naturally with the built-in physics system. It has a circle collider, and then it has a pullable object, so we can pull these into the pulling system and spawn a bunch of them. And once you have a floater, and you hit play, this will actually land into the liquid and float. So let's say that's set to unfocus. Let's hit play and I'll show you what I mean. Yep, and there you go. It's now floating. It has a nice little bounce to it. It is falling far enough that it hits the surface of the toxic river. So this river is buoyant, but it has no flow. So if we wanted to change the flow of this river, we can go to the object, go to flow, and then change the flow magnitude to either a negative or a positive value. So if I set this to 5, you'll see the fish will start to flow to the right. And if I set this to -5, it will start to flow to the left. And if I grab the fish and drop it in, you'll see it will bounce and flow to the right, or to the left. So that is the basics of the buoyancy system and how to change the flow. The other settings are set up on the prefab, so I suggest we keep the density, linear drag, angular drag the same. And then if we need to tweak the flow, we can do that individually in the scene. So all of the toxic rivers have been set up to the default values of having a flow of 0, 0, 0, except for the objects in this room. So let's head on over to that room and check it out. For now, I've disabled the enemy spawning in this room, so we can just take a look at the rivers and the floaters. So over here, we have a spawn point for the floaters. They will fall through one-way collision. They will also ignore the player, or they used to. Oh no, the player can interact with these, so that's kind of fun. But they will ignore enemies, obstacles, etc. We can also disable the player, but I did have some fun pushing these around earlier, so I thought maybe we should keep that. And yeah, they fall naturally, flow into the other rivers, and then you can see this one flows in the opposite direction, and they flow into this corner. And what we've done in order to support this, let me do it. Oops, let me go back in there. What we've done in order to keep them from overtaking the scene is we've created a floater disable zone. So behind this wall, the objects will flow into a disable zone and disappear. And if I go to the layers, you'll see I can turn off the foreground layer. And technically you can go behind here. So I can do that right now. Yep. So that's how the disabler works. And this prevents it from overtaking the scene with like thousands of instances. Yeah, let's take a look at the final room that I've updated, which was quite tedious. So one thing that you may have noticed is you have to break these up into individual pieces, and this becomes very clear inside of the horde stream. So in here you'll see we have quite a few more toxic rivers. And every one of these has been configured to flow in a specific direction. So it flows 10, this one's 10, 10, and then this one will be negative. And then the objects will spawn. If we go here, we have a dead fish spawner here that will drop them into this river. And like I mentioned, these fish will ignore obstacles or characters, minus the player. So if we spawn into this scene, you'll see exactly what I mean. It allows the fish to flow freely. Now I did have it so that they would collide with characters and obstacles initially, but the issue we had with that was they would pile up in this corner, and then they would like burst over or overflow if you left it running for too long. And as fun as that was, I think it causes some really weird gameplay. It's like a weird, like the expectation is broken, and I think this guides the player more naturally anyway. So maybe we tweak this and change it. Another idea is if they build up here, we disable them after a certain number have spawned, and then once they reach the bottom and they get destroyed, then we can spawn more. And then of course we have them flowing from this direction like they did previously. I was a bit confused by this. This water seems to flow upwards. Maybe we need to tweak the tile map so it flows this way, downwards. It seems a bit strange that they're flowing upwards, but the original path seemed to go this way and then back up. So I kept it I kept it the same as the original, but they do flow upwards nicely enough based on the buoyancy, so it's working. And then same thing, we're disabling them when the player reaches, or sorry, when the object reaches that trigger zone. You can see that here. It's off screen, which is nice.